Hello there, I'm Adam the Tank Engine, and this is another somewhat interesting installment of Rusty Mediocre Game Design Fun Time. So this time around, I decided to go with this It's Based jam. I thought the name was funny, and the theme is Frontier, which is actually great because I got some ideas. What is not great, however, is that it started a couple days ago, and I only have like 11 days to do this. So I'm going to do a 2D project this time. We're actually going to use pixel art because I'm going to be trying to make this as close to like a Sega Genesis game as possible, using similar limitations, color palette, number of sprites, etc. And eventually try to port that over to an actual Genesis. And the project is going to be called Chop Up Chop, and you'll see what that means later. Okay, so here's some of the character designs, obviously drawn on some very pristine and expensive drawing paper. So this is Chad Everyman. He's just some dude, white t-shirt, blue jeans. And this is one of the Antifa goons. They're going to be scrawny in black, wearing a useless surgical mask. Since I have very little time, if I can get this drawn up as a sprite and this drawn up as a sprite, that will be quite the miracle. This is not how I normally do this, but I'm going to create the characters and the backgrounds first, and study Sega Genesis character movement, try to implement that in Unity. Then I'll do enemy AI, which they're probably just going to walk around and some combat, so you punch, pretty much defeated because these guys are a bunch of weenies. And then I'm going to run out of time, and then I'm going to panic, and then I'm just going to submit whatever I have. So here's Chad Everyman. I thought this looked pretty good. However, sprite animations are kind of hard, and it's okay. It's going to be more like that. His punch looks more like a NES than a Genesis, but I'm a beginner, so in here's the bad guy. That's going to be his shuffling, his pathetic shuffle, and then when he punches, even he's surprised that he's doing something. Now for the title, I went into Photoshop. I just typed up a title, added a gradient, and then I went to anti-aliasing and I turned it to none so that I would have these nice sharp edges. And then I brought that into a sprite editor, and then I'm using the Genesis palette, or I think it's the Genesis palette, try to color in some of this because I can't use this many colors. I can only use 16 at a time. We're going to set up some animation for this goon here. He does a slow shuffle for the title screen and when he's not really aware of you. He's just kind of standing there. So we are actually going to just create a couple of these. So we're going to create a walking one. And we're going to create a slap. Just add some transitions here. I already added 2 booleans here. Aware and attack. Once they're aware of you, the only thing they're going to do is slap and then go back to being aware again. So I only need these. It doesn't need to ever revert back to this. Let's see what that looks like. I actually forgot to add the animations. Oh, I didn't make one. Hang on, kids. Now, I don't know how to just do a single frame animation, so I actually grab at least 2 frames and put it in the right folder. Since I don't need this one, I'll just delete that, so then it's pretty much becomes a single frame animation. And that is what we'll use. So then the slap should be available. Wonderful. So he's shuffling, then he becomes aware, and then he shuffles faster. And he's going to attack, and then that will stop attacking. I don't know how fast he'll do that. And that's pretty much how it's going to go. I haven't coded any of that yet, but this is a way you can test it by just changing the booleans here, and then you'll see if your animations are going to look somewhat okay. Now, when I brought my guy in here, I noticed it looks really garbled. It turns out that down here, turn the compression to none, and now he looks like the sprite that I actually created. This is what I got for the enemy so far. So initially, the goon just kind of stands there. When the player gets close enough, which is what I'm checking here, I'm checking the distance between this goon and the player. When that's within 6 feet, he will become aggressive, which is a variable I have here. Then I have a separate little block that just checks every frame. If they're aggressive, then the speed, which is actually this graph variable speed, will be set to 2, which is just a number I chose. If they're not aggressive, it's just going to be 0. Also, every frame, I'm checking the position of the goon and the player, comparing if the X is greater, then they will be considered facing right. If not, they're facing to the left. So we're going to check here. If they're facing to the right, we're going to just set the velocity multiply by the speed and -1 so that they're actually going in the right direction. If not, then we do not multiply by -1. It'll just be the regular speed number. And I also have a level here, which I might change later. I might randomly assign a level, which will multiply the speed. So let's just do level 1. I have not done the controls for Chad yet. So the goon starts off not moving. You get close enough, he'll start moving. If you're on this side, oops. If you're on this side, he'll start moving that way. Yeah, that's what we got so far. And it's working, and I love it. So I had this idea, since I did not draw any death animation for him, or even getting hurt, that maybe these goons attacking him doesn't actually affect anything. So this health thing is just a static image. It never goes down. And instead, what he's going to do is just complain. So if you see, he's going to keep hitting, and he's just like, hey, what gives? Dude. And the way this happens is I created a bunch of speech bubbles in Photoshop. And then I have a random number generator. And then this huge mess is just a switch that the number goes in, and then it will pick one of these, and it's just going to create a speech bubble. After a second, it destroys it. And then after it's done, you can move again and everything. There's a lot of wires going into this, but it's when you have just one, it's pretty simple. When you start having 11 of them, it just looks crazy. And instead of placing a bunch of enemies everywhere and then you defeat them all and then have nothing to do, I'm going to be creating an enemy spawner. So when you walk into this area, another goon shows up. So you walk into it, and there's another goon. So I added an option so that when you're actually exiting the collider, which is just based on this, it will spawn an enemy. And it's literally just a duplicate of this, except for on trigger exit instead of on trigger enter. So this is the title screen. It waits 5 seconds, and then this can press start comes up. Then there's an infinite while loop that just sets the sprite renderer enabled, and then disables it, and then enables it, and disables it. And this will go on for eternity. Make sure you set this to a coroutine, otherwise these won't work. And then on every frame, essentially we're waiting for, can you press start? And after 5 seconds, you can. And once that's true, it's waiting for any key, and then it's going to go to the next scene. Don't forget, if you ever want that to work, you have to add it to the build settings. The only way I know how to do that is to open the scene and then click Add Open Scenes. And there it is. You don't have to build it, you just have to add it there. So I have this title screen. I have an intro with barely legible text. And I have a game that you can play. Also, because I had time, I actually added a background. So we have a background now. And there's sound effects when you hit somebody. So now, you hit people.
Stop it!
All right, here's a little something I came up with. I have these colliders, so your character can't move too far to the left or to the right. And I can never remember where they were because I had this off. If I had this on, well, you could see them. So I ended up just creating a super simple script where on start, it just disables the sprite renderer. So then when you push play, this will happen. They're gone. So we're finally done, and I've submitted the project. Now, a little advice if you do join a game jam, especially on itch. I'm sure other platforms have this. But I would recommend making it as easy as possible. So play in browser is the easiest. I'm definitely going to try all of these. I might try some of these. I'm not going to try any of these. Also, don't charge $16 for your game jam entry. Nobody's going to pay that. At least I hope not. Now I'm just going to pretend that I won this contest, and here's why. This ran for over 2 weeks, and you can review the results. But there are 44 entries submitted, 0 ratings were given because we weren't allowed to give ratings. Someone else posted, will you publish who won the jam? Yes, we had a live stream for it, and we'll drop it here in a day or two. That was 6 days ago. Where did the live stream happen? If there's a live stream, please let us know the time and the link. Thanks. There were no replies to any of this. So I guess everybody wins. So even though you never really get to do everything you plan for, some of the things when you're crunched for time actually turned out to be more fun. For example, someone left a comment, I laughed hard when they flew out of the screen. Originally, I just wanted them to, fall on the ground and start crying. But in the absence of time, I just had them fly off the screen, just like in Last Battle. And it just ended up being kind of hilarious to watch. So in a way, I'm glad I didn't have time to do what I originally planned. And I will point out, 2 weeks later, they have yet to post the results. Oh well, I had fun. I hope you did too. See you next time.